Imagine you jump off a first-floor balcony, about 3 meters high, straight onto a hard concrete floor. If you land perfectly straight, with your legs completely stiff, the bones in your legs are literally going to snap.
So why exactly does locking your knees turn a jump into a catastrophic injury? Think about it. When you land stiff-legged, your knees only compress by a tiny amount, maybe half a centimeter, as your body absorbs the impact. But why does that tiny half-centimeter difference make the landing so dangerous, when just bending your knees lets you walk away completely unharmed?
The physics behind this are absolutely wild. A stiff landing from that height generates a massive 353,000 newtons of force straight into your knee joints. That is literally 500 times your own body weight acting on your bones in a fraction of a second. By the end of this explainer, you're going to understand the core concept of gravitational potential energy, the exact formula behind it, and exactly how to apply it so you can solve real-world problems, like how to survive a fall like this.
All right, let's start with the basics. What exactly is this energy? Gravitational potential energy is simply the energy stored within an object Earth's system just because of its physical position. Think about lifting a heavy box off the ground. You're doing work against gravity, right? Well, that work doesn't just vanish into thin air. It transforms. It gets stored in the gravitational field between the Earth and the box. We call it potential energy because it literally has the potential to do work for us later on when we let the object go.
Let's make this super concrete with a simple everyday example. Picture one of those old-school cuckoo clocks that run on hanging weights. If you pull a half-kilogram weight straight up by exactly 1 meter, you are actively doing work. In doing so, you're storing exactly 4.90 joules of gravitational potential energy right into that clock system. Then, as the clock ticks away over the next couple of days, that weight slowly drops. It's giving up that stored 4.90 joules to power the gears and keep time without you ever needing to worry about the complex mechanical forces happening inside. Now you might be wondering, and this is a classic student question, what if I don't lift an object straight up? What if I carry that box up a slanted ladder or drag it up a long, winding spiral staircase to reach the exact same floor? Does taking a different path change the amount of potential energy I've just stored up? Wait, pay attention here because this is an absolutely crucial concept. The answer is no, not at all. Gravity is part of a very special class of forces where the path you take is totally irrelevant. It literally doesn't matter if you took the stairs, rode an elevator, or threw the box through a second-story window. The change in gravitational potential energy depends entirely on your starting point and your ending point. The vertical difference is the only thing that matters.
So the really beautiful takeaway here is that we can calculate this change in potential energy using a super straightforward, step-by-step approach. We don't have to stress over the complex, curving paths an object might take. Step 1, you just identify the mass of the object. Step 2, multiply that by the acceleration due to gravity. And Step 3, multiply by the vertical change in height. That is literally it. And that brings us right to the core mathematical formula for this lecture. The change in gravitational potential energy, which we write as delta PEG, equals m times g times h. Mass times gravity times the change in height. This is a massive shortcut. It allows us to completely bypass incredibly messy calculations of forces and distances along a weird path, and instead, we just focus on where the object starts and where it ends up. Okay, so now that we've got a solid grip on how we store this energy, let's look at what happens when we unleash it. When an object falls freely, assuming we're ignoring air resistance for a second, all that stored potential energy is perfectly converted into kinetic energy, which is the energy of motion. It's a perfect mathematical balance. The negative change in potential energy exactly equals the positive gain in kinetic energy. To put it simply, whatever you lose in height, you gain in speed.
Let's connect this to real life with a classic physics example. Imagine you're an engineer designing a roller coaster, and you need to figure out the exact final speed of the cart right as it bottoms out after dropping down a massive 20-meter hill. If you tried using regular forces to calculate this on a curving, bending track, it would be a total mathematical nightmare. But if we use our energy formula, it's shockingly easy.
We're going to break this down into 2 distinct scenarios for our roller coaster to see how this works. In part A, we'll pretend the coaster creeps up to the very edge and starts perfectly from rest, so 0 meters per second initial speed. Then in part B, we'll look at what happens if the cart gets a running start and already has an initial speed of 5 meters per second as it crests that exact same 20-meter drop. Starting with part A, from rest, we set our loss of potential energy, that's our mgh, equal to our gain in kinetic energy, which is 1/2 mv squared. Now, here is where the algebra gets really interesting. Notice that the mass variable m is sitting on both sides of the equation. That means it completely cancels out, leaving us with a beautifully simple equation. Velocity equals the square root of 2 times gravity times height.
So let's plug our numbers in. We use our standard Earth gravity of 9.8 meters per second squared and our 20-meter drop. Calculate that out, and we find the coaster reaches a final speed of exactly 19.8 meters per second at the bottom of the hill. And remember how mass canceled out? That means the cart is hitting 19.8 meters per second, whether it's totally empty or fully loaded with a bunch of heavy passengers.
Now let's move over to part B and see what happens when we factor in that running start. In this case, our final kinetic energy is going to be equal to the potential energy we lost during the drop, plus the initial kinetic energy we already had from cruising at 5 meters per second. When we rearrange the algebra for this, the mass still completely cancels out. And that gives us our final velocity equals the square root of 2gh plus our initial velocity squared.
Now, you'd probably think that starting off with 5 meters per second of speed would give us a massive, noticeable boost at the bottom of the track, right? But surprisingly, adding that initial energy only bumps our final velocity up to 20.4 meters per second. That is a measly 0.6 meter per second increase over starting completely from rest. It really highlights just how dominating the energy from that 20-meter vertical drop really is. All right, quick pop quiz time to see if you're really connecting the concepts here. Think about it. Why exactly did the mass cancel out in our roller coaster math? What fundamental truth about physics does this reveal when we're talking about objects in free fall?
If you are thinking back to our early kinematics lectures, you absolutely nailed it. As long as we can ignore friction and air resistance, all objects fall at the exact same rate. The speed of a falling body depends purely on its initial speed and the vertical height it drops from. It has absolutely nothing to do with its mass. It's just like how a bowling ball and a feather will accelerate at the exact same rate if you drop them in a perfect vacuum.
Okay, let's bring this full circle and connect back to our bone-breaking jumper from the very beginning of the explainer. To stop the jumper, the floor has to do negative work to remove all that built-up kinetic energy. A stiff human forces the floor to do all of that work in just half a centimeter of distance, which is what creates that devastating 353,000 newtons of force. But look at how a kangaroo lands. A kangaroo avoids snapping its legs by taking a deep bend in its hind legs, spreading the impact over a much longer distance, like half a meter. By increasing the distance, they safely bleed off that kinetic energy to zero with just a fraction of the force.
Before we wrap up, let's quickly summarize the absolute key takeaways from this lecture. Number 1. Simply lifting an object stores gravitational potential energy in the object Earth system. Number 2. You can easily calculate it using the formula delta PEG equals mgh. Number 3. The path you take to reach that height absolutely does not matter. And number 4. When an object descends, all that stored potential energy perfectly converts into kinetic energy. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates a much larger truth in physics. We've just seen how beautifully potential energy and kinetic energy trade places. This sets us up perfectly for our next lecture, where we're going to expand this idea to other forces, like springs and friction, and uncover the ultimate rulebook of the universe, the law of conservation of energy. See you in the next lecture.